Okay, Advanced Algebra 2. This should be Tuesday the 21st. And yesterday on the 20th we did some special right triangles, our 30, 60, 90, and our 45, 45, 90 that we had to remember from geometry. Today we're going to do those again, but we're going to look at a specific type of problem we didn't cover yesterday. And that's something that may happen to us as we're solving these problems, and that is we may get an answer of, say, 2 divided by square root of 3. We didn't have any of these yesterday where we divided by a radical. Now, if you remember what you have to do, you can't say that's my final answer here. You have to get rid of that radical. You have to rationalize. So you multiply by square root of 3 over square root of 3 here, and you get 2 square root of 3 over the square root of 9. And then that square root of 9 becomes positive 3, and then you don't have a radical in your denominator anymore. That process is called rationalizing. So that's kind of what we're going to look at today. So really we're doing the same thing we did yesterday, only we're going to possibly have one extra step. So if you remember yesterday, and here's the key, we need to recognize these need to stick out like a sore thumb to us what angle we're dealing with. And if that angle is a 30, a 60, or a 45, then we have to use the layout for those triangles to help us here. Okay? So I see a 60, so I'm going to say, what's the layout for a 30, 60, 90 triangle? Well, opposite the 60 is a square root of 3, opposite of 30 is a 1, opposite of 90 is a 2. Okay, you need to know that layout. All right, then we would go to our triangle. We'd simply say, well, we got a 5 and we got an x here. Where are they? Well, the 5 is opposite of my angle, and the x is on the hypotenuse. And we would do like we did last week. We'd say, okay, that's O and H. That's so, sine. And we would set up the sine of 60 equals the opposite side 5 over x. That's just like last week. But now it's got that 60-degree angle in it. So now we're going to look at this triangle and say, what is the sine of a 60? What's that equal to? Well, from my 60, that would be the opposite of my 60, which is a square root of 3. Over my hypotenuse, which is a 2. So this left side of this equation, sine of 60, is equal to square root of 3 over 2. And now we know that's equal to 5 over x. So we cross multiply. And I would get square root of 3 times x equals 2 times 5, which is 10. All right. Now here's where we're going to have the extra step involved. We're going to divide by square root of 3. And we're going to get x equals 10 divided by square root of 3. We cannot call that our answer. We need to rationalize that. We need to multiply by square root of 3 over square root of 3, and we get 10 square root of 3 over a 3. Now remember, as far as simplifying this fraction, you have to look here to simplify. Can't cancel those two 3's because one is inside the radical and one is not. So since we can't do anything to 10 over 3, then we can't simplify this anymore, and our answer is 10 rad 3 over 3. Okay? But we got to remember this layout for our 30, 60, 90. Now, let's talk about the 45, 45, 90 while we're here. What's the layout for a 45, 45, 90? Do you remember it before I put it on here? I think this is the easy one to remember, because if you remember from geometry, if my two angles are the same, then those sides have to be the same. So we call both of those 1s. And then my hypotenuse gets a square root of 2. Okay? So there's a chance that you could end up with a square root of 2 in your denominator of your answer, and you have to multiply by square root of 2 over square root of 2 to finish it off. All right? Also, remember, it's important to recognize those angles that you're dealing with, and when it's not a 30, 60, or a 45, so this 40 degrees, I would just simply say that's not a special angle. Okay, what do? I go old school on it. I say the 5 is opposite and the x is on the hypotenuse. Okay, so it's the exact same looking triangle. It's got the 5 and the x as the first example, but our angle is not special. So we would set up the sine of 40 degrees. It's the opposite and hypotenuse. So the sine of 40 degrees equals 5 over x. Since this is not a special angle, we would just cross multiply. Get x times the sine of 40 equals 5. Divide by our sine of 40. And since it's 40 degrees, it's not 30, it's not 60, and it's not 45, then we would grab our calculator. If I could spell my abbreviation correctly, we would grab our calculator and type that in. And we would get approximately 7.8. Okay, so you got to recognize your angle, what kind of an angle you're dealing with. Is it a special angle, which means simply is it a 30, a 60, or a 45? Then use your triangles if it is. If it's not, then you go old school like this one. Okay. Okay, for tomorrow, do these two triangles, solve for x. And if you can do it without a calculator, we want you to try to do it without a calculator. So again, pay attention to the angles you are given and if they are special angles or not. If they are special angles, then try to do it without a calculator. Okay, so these two are your homework. Submit them in the assignment. See you tomorrow.